But
Well,
yeah.
let's move on to something that's apparently more political,
Or
shall we?
not, depending on who you
let's
ask.
Yeah,
So
this one might get contentious.
this might be democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what to have for dinner, and I feel like that's what we're got to get into here. But let's figure it out.
We got the American president on tap for this one in theater too. Dave, you're bringing that onto the table. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, The American President from 1995, directed and produced by Rob Reiner and written by Aaron Sorkin, bringing together the same team who had done A Few Good Men just a few years earlier. It's a movie about a fictional president, Andrew Shepard,
starring
Michael Douglas,
Annette Bening,
Martin Sheen, Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox.
Yeah. Who else is in this movie? Like Ron Canada's in this movie.
Which one was Ron Canada in this movie?
He's like one of the reporters.
He was there for a second.
Yeah, Richard Dreyfuss plays the Republican challenger. There's a number of like it's really strong actor. Yeah, John Mahoney from Frasier is like the environmental leader.
Got Wendy Malick in there to spice it up.
Oh yeah, Wendy Malick.
Yeah, Paymer.
This guy, I forget his name, but
his name's David Paymer. He's playing, Kodak.
Right. And so this movie is about a fictional president, Andrew Shepard, who's a popular Democrat, who's a widower. He's like, his wife died of cancer. He's a single dad, and he's in the third year of his first term. And he's looking like he's going to say he's very popular. He's got 60% approval rating. It looks like he's going to sail to re-election. But it's also like this thing about, well, this woman comes through, Annette Bening, played by Annette Bening, who's Sydney Ellen Wade, who's a lobbyist lawyer for the Environmental Committee, because they're pushing hard for reduction of fossil fuel, global warming, climate change. This is the politics of the movie, and while she comes through, he's like, oh, she seems cool. And like, he's kind of taken with her and he wants to ask her out on a date. And so it becomes about, well, what if the president wanted to go on a date with just a regular person and like a civilian, I guess, and what would that look like? Because that had never really taken place, even though he kind of mentions in the movie like Woodrow Wilson had done that, and there were other, like Taft had been a president who had been married while being in office. But it's in the era of television in the 20th century. This is unusual. The whole thing, they're not married, the family values, and it's very much a product of its time, 1995, where it's the end of the 20th century. It's right before the Monica Lewinsky scandal. It's obviously before everything with Bush and Gore, and that polarizing election that really kicked off like the modern era of politics that we know.
And it shows.
It shows.
But it was still the era of like Clinton and George Bush and stuff. Hey Murphy, do you have a trailer?
I do actually.
All right, let's hit that.
Yeah, let's get into the trailer.
We've got a situation.
It is the highest level of office.
It's the world capital of politics.
Where the decisions made affect an entire nation.
Terrible choices.
This is not the American President.
They don't in this movie.
This is
nation's biggest issues.
They're coming after us.
This is the West Wing, guys.
Wait, this isn't the American
President?
This
isn't it. This is not it. This is the West Wing, which is also by Aaron Sorkin.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Are we sure about that? Because it really felt like
watching, because I'm not sure. It seems so very, very.
Oh shit! It is the West Wing. Oh shit!
It's the West Wing. Who knew?
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry.
And
wait.
Yes, this film does very much tie to the West Wing, because
Dave, I have a question for you.
Yes.
We asked you to bring a movie, and instead you brought the shitty romance episode of The West Wing.
I did not. Okay, you guys keeping up?
Okay. I'm sorry. I got the actual.
No, I have a point here.
No, he's put his foot down.
No, I put my foot down because you guys just don't like romance movies?
No, I love a good romance movie, but like the thing about this romance is there's about as much chemistry as a chalk mine. It's base, it's white, and it's dry as hell.
You don't think Michael Douglas and Annette Bening have chemistry?
God, no.
Michael Douglas is a particularly strong actor, especially in this movie. Like he comes off very samey in most of his movies, and this one, he just feels like he's reading the lines. And that's a common theme I find with both of these next two movies, and I find that maybe is a thing with like very political dialogue-driven movies, like even shows like The West Wing, is because I have seen some episodes of The West Wing, where the characters just feel and sound like they're reading lines because it's all very fast.
It's Aaron
People don't
Sorkin
talk
style.
that fast.
Yeah, it's very
People
Aaron
don't
Sorkin.
process thoughts that and like so that takes me out of the movie because everyone just seems very fake. They just seem like they're reading the script. And
Okay.
I don't feel- I-
Well, hang on. Hold your
Martin
thoughts.
Sheen's good. Martin Sheen is good.
Hold your thoughts.
They're all
Let's
good.
play
They're
the
all
actual trailer
No,
this
they're all
time.
not good. All right, fine. We can watch the real one, I guess.
The president has asked me to convey to you that he's sending his energy bill to the floor with a call for a 10% reduction.
The president's
10%.
expecting our full support.
Yes, he is.
The
Sydney.
president's dreaming, AJ. The president
Sydney
has critically misjudged reality.
Seriously,
If he
Dave, it's like
honestly
let's
thinks that
make
the
a movie
environmental
about
community is
like
going to whistle a happy tune
wet
while
blanket
rallying support around
environmental
this pitifully lame
legislation
mockery of
and like
environmental
feckless
leadership,
gun
then your
control.
boss is the
Like,
chief executive
What?
of
like
fantasy.
non-issues, yes.
President?
What do you mean
Oh,
non-issues?
I couldn't
Take
be-
it down, Murphy. Take it down. I have to
Take it down.
don't know.
Like, what are you talking? Feckless issues.
It's even called out. Hold on,
What
I
is
gotta turn the
climate change
skeleton
a
on.
feckless issue? What are you talking about?
She even calls it out in the friggin' movie. She's just like, your gun control, your crime bill won't stop any crime.
That's why he throws it out and he says, no, we have to do it. We have to start over and try again.
And even the environmental bill, in the terms that they discuss it in this movie, is just like not worthy of a movie. It's not like this groundbreaking thing. It's not talking.
It
about
was
this
in
great
1995.
political issue. No, it was not. It's not like they were like, let's go
What do you mean,
green
no?
energy. Let's go let's ban. Let's go electric cars, or let's do some big grand thing worthy of a movie. No, let's
He honestly thinks
have a
that the
movie about
environmental
feckless
community is
gun
going to whistle
control.
a happy tune
and-
You make no
while
sense.
rallying support around this pitifully lame mockery of environmental leadership just because he's a nice guy and he's done better than his predecessors.
You're right,
And your
Murphy.
boss
They
is
have
the
no
chief
chemistry.
executive of
And
fantasy land.
honestly,
Let's
she's
take him
not
out
very
back
good
and
in
beat
this
the
movie.
shit
You're
out
out to lunch. They
Take
have
him out back
amazing
and beat the shit
chemistry.
out of him.
That's a funny line. Take him out back and beat the shit out of him. That's
okay.
the best line. In the whole movie.
It's not my favorite line in the movie, but it's an interesting introduction. I actually like when he takes her into the Oval Office and there's that whole awkwardness, but then she turns like fierce about like, no, like you want us to back you for re-election, you're gonna have to come with us. Like I think Annette Bening does a lot to like establish herself as very competent in her role as this high-powered lawyer for the lobby group, but she's also trying to balance this romance.
I don't think she's very good in this movie.
I think she's
like
excellent
Dr.
in this
Strangelove,
movie.
I guess.
She's excellent. She
Yeah.
was nominated for a
But
Golden
I
Globe
don't
for
think
this movie.
either of the two leads are good.
Well, you're wrong.
And like Michael J. Fox is just a straight
Okay.
character. He's just the fast talking like nuts and bolts guy.
Okay, gentlemen, no fighting in the war room. All right, let's let Dave finish the synopsis briefly
that's
before
true.
we start cutting him off and getting into the nitty gritty.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair
So we
point,
set up that it's what if the
speaker.
president, the basic premise and how they sold the movie is like, what if the president had a girlfriend? What would that look like? But beyond that, it's much more about there's a question of should the president's personal life, should a public leader's personal life matter or not? And because they keep saying like, how can you do this? How can you date this woman and your daughter's sleeping down the hall? And
Character vote.
The character
Such
question.
mid-90s like soccer mom clutching pearls. Like, how think of the
But
children.
to me, that's just a silly, very American thing to ask in a movie.
Can I
If
tell
you
the
ask
plot without you
anyone-
guys cutting me
Yes.
off? Like you just
Yes.
told me you would do.
Go
Every
for
time
it.
every time I say something, you guys got to come in with all your little stuff.
This is a
Like,
contentious one.
well, you guys are being
chomping at
dicks.
it.
I don't know what else to tell you. Like it's like you're like,
Finish
well,
it. Finish your synopsis.
you're just like, no, Annette Bening sucks. This sucks. I'm like,
Do they
well,
get
why?
together? Everyone wants to know if the crazy kids get together.
They get together. I get that the morality of it is 90s. It's very much an era of its time. This movie wouldn't be made now because it has to exist in the era it does. As I mentioned earlier, it's before Monica Lewinsky and the polarized politics, certainly before Trump, which I think completely changed our view of the president. But even the opening sequence of this movie is this montage looking at all the presidents and the photos, like Lincoln, who we're going to be talking about, that there are U.S. presidents who are revered, rightly or wrongly, Washington, Lincoln, FDR, whoever, right? And that's the movie, what the movie's trying to go for, the prestige, what leadership's about. And so there's this whole thing about him trying to balance the environmental issues as well with his what he ran on, which is gun control and crime bill and all this kind of stuff, as well as there's other moments of things he has to deal with. He has to deal with like a union strike in St. Louis around Christmas. He has to go to
terrorist attack.
There's the Libyans attack Israel, and so he has to like respond to that. And
did these things actually happen in the movie? Because I know I watched this movie, but I admittedly kind of forgot.
You have to listen to the dialogue.
They're generally just a scene. Like
you have to listen to the dialogue and not worry about whether or not Annette Bening has chemistry with Michael Douglas or not. And then the other part of it is that because they have this relationship, the Sidney Ellen Wade and the president, she inadvertently tells him that she gives him information one day at a Christmas party that he could use to get his crime bill done, but it's going to mean selling out the environmental bill, which she had promised. He made this pledge to her to get the votes, to get the legislation passed, but if he can only get one, he was going to go for his crime bill. And so he kind of sells her out, and then she gets fired because the entire bill falls apart because she'd been lobbying to get the votes for the 20% reduction on fossil fuels. And so she gets fired, she leaves him, and then that's when he's resolved to Michael J. Fox makes this great speech about what leadership is about. The fact that he hadn't been engaging with this other character, Bob Rumson, who is this Republican challenger who's using the relationship with Sidney Ellen Wade and the president like to smear them,
He's like so inconsequential in the movie.
He's not really that important.
This villain or something, or like.
Well, he's the antagonist. But
he barely is.
Yeah, he's just the one who's like, because he's attacking character and really traditionally a presidential thing before this was always about issues, like character was less focused on. Today it's almost all about character, and that's really what the speech is that Michael Douglas gives at the end of the movie. He's like, being president, it might be partly about character. I can tell you it's all about character and why that matters and what you have to stand up for and realizing your mistakes. And then he comes around and she comes back to him and he's able to run, and then the movie ends. So that's kind of like he's able to find a way to be the president and have a girlfriend and try to balance all the issues and kind of come to a sense about what's right, and doing the right thing. And that's the movie. All right, guys, get into all the
plot storytelling. Yeah. Well, here we go. Murphy, do you want to go first?
Okay. I mean, how can I put this? The first time I paused this movie was 13 minutes in.
I have to cut in here now. Okay. Yeah. Yes. The exact scene is where I first time checked. This exact scene.
What's wrong with this scene?
This exact moment. This is the moment.
It wasn't.
Looked at the time to see if the movie was almost over.
No, it's not even. It wasn't even for me to see if the movie was over. I just wanted to see.
Nothing had happened yet.
Yeah, I wanted to see how much time had passed. And
it's just an exposition scene, guys, where he's explaining.
No, but what we're saying is the entire this is at about 13 minutes, and
yeah,
for me,
when I first told Davan I watched this. When I first watched this movie and I told Davan I watched it, I was like 13 minutes in. I paused it to check the time, and then I paused it like 6 more times to check the time of the movie. It's generally not a great sign that it's a good movie if I'm pausing to check the time. And then he watched the movie.
What happened? I'm still not getting it.
Because it felt like it had been quite a long time, and nothing had happened, and it had all been incredibly boring, and I hadn't cared about any of the characters.
There's no weight.
This feels
to
like
the
a
dialogue.
long time for nothing to nothing. Like it's like I think Jaemeel put it best, where he says a lot of things are happening in this movie, and they're all quite uninteresting.
Actually, he just made a comment here. Global warming isn't the politics of the film. It is about the rise of the political celebrity becoming more important than the platform of the candidates themselves.
Yes, and that's my problem with this movie, which I'll get into after Murphy.
Well, it's kind of both, but he's right that I'd say that it's more about what you're able to criticize a public figure based on their character, their personal life, how much that should matter or not, how much the public has a right to have a say in it, like the American people shouldn't have a say in my personal life. And like the American people have a funny thing of figuring out what they think is important, and what voters think that they think is important or not. So it's whether it's right or wrong. That's kind of the nature of democracy.
Sure, but like there's also just like the whole like film, like the scene. This is where it really starts because like again, it's hard to get into a rom-com about the president when the romance of the two main characters feels like chalk and a rock.
Yeah, you don't like the romance. I can't do anything about that. So
that's fair,
But the
but
movie
like
should have done something about that.
this
Because
They
could
did,
have
I don't
made
know.
two actors that had chemistry.
they have
Okay,
chemistry.
Scenes,
That's just
there's
your
not
opinion.
enough scenes of them developing in a relationship. They have
All
this
right, all
one
right.
dance. He calls
Yeah,
her
but,
once,
like,
and
That's
next
just
scene,
your
she's like, "Oh,
your
by
two
the way, I'm
opinions.
in love
Fair
with you."
enough, but this movie is very successful, very popular, and lots of people think they have chemistry.
Oh, I'm sure it's popular in America, and I'll get into that.
My mother loves this movie. Loves it.
And that's
You love
that's
it
the
because your
thing
mother
about
loves
this
it.
movie is this is a movie for grandmothers, right? At the end of the day, this is a grandmother's
Grandmothers are
romance
people
movie.
too.
No, and that's
I
absolutely
agree with you,
fair.
Dave. Grandmothers are
That's
people too, and they deserve
grandmothers
movies.
are people too.
But
They're the best people in the world, hands down. And we should love them and cherish them. And they deserve movies too. It's just I'm not a grandmother. I'm a 36 year
Nor am
old
I, but I saw this as
guy.
a
But I
kid, and I fell in love with this movie. And I think that they do have chemistry. Now, you can that's like saying, like, I don't know, like you see a couple, are they good together or not? Like, I don't know, that's all opinion. So,
but this is a movie.
Yeah.
Like there are
Yeah.
undeniable chemistries between actors in movies.
at the end of the
And
day,
this
here's
is
the
certainly
thing.
not one of them.
You can deny it. It's so easy to deny things. But
Here's the biggest problem with the film for me. It's a Rob Reiner film.
Yeah.
There's really a lot of Rob Reiner films I enjoy, if any. He's a great actor. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but as like a filmmaker, he's dull, and it just comes through in every aching minute of this film.
Okay,
And
that's what it is. Okay, so you don't like Rob
Well,
Reiner's style, but it's
well,
fine.
it's mostly in part with Rob Reiner's style and the general portrayal of the characters that are delivering the lines. I'm not saying the content of the movie isn't great. Like they do deal with some somewhat important political issues during the 90s, and a lot of it's more or less like I sold you out so I could get my gun and criminal bill, which won't amount to anything, so you couldn't get your 10% on emissions, which again won't amount to anything. It's a lot of politics that didn't amount to anything, so therefore the dialogue in the film felt weightless and
just not worthy of a movie.
But guys, I have to disagree with you. Like these are issues we're dealing with today.
We are, and that's why their dialogue
are they
felt
exciting
completely
enough for a
empty.
movie. Like,
Yeah.
is there a movie
What
being
would be?
made
Nuclear
right now
war?
about
Is that the only
Canadian?
thing?
No, but is there a movie being made right now about Canadian emissions reductions? It's like, of course not, because no one in their right mind would make that movie. So here's my biggest problem with this movie, and
I reject that too. But okay, that's fair.
It was probably defeated in my mind on its way in, because to me, I felt dirty when this was done, because I felt like I willingly just watched propaganda for an hour and a half. Like, do you remember the Street Fighter
I don't
movie?
feel like I got that out of it, but go on.
Do you guys remember the Street Fighter movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Remember when they show Blanca the videos of like war and
Yes,
like
I
violence
see
to
where you're
make
getting
him
at.
a killer?
Yeah.
I feel like if you wanted to create a Blanca who just loved America blindly, you would just show them this movie. Because it's like Dave, I was voicing this to Dave earlier. He's just like, I agree, it's like idealized and like that type of thing. And
Yes.
like perhaps even like, but to me, that's not just a benign thing. To me, the problem, I'm a plant guy, fellas. I'm a horticulturalist. I look at the root and the things that grow from the root, and I see a big problem. Like, how strange would it be if a similar movie of like this was made about Justin Trudeau, or literally any Canadian prime minister there has ever been?
It wouldn't happen.
And it would never happen. It would never, and there's good reasons to why that would never happen. And all those good reasons legitimately apply to the US as well. But the US makes a celebrity out of everything. And this is where I'm going to get political, I guess, for a minute. This is the politics episode. I don't think that's a benign thing. I think the reason you can't pass gun control in the US stems from this very same thing. I think the reason the U.S. is so slow to change, like the metric system, taking it for example, is because of this idea that things, by just virtue of being American, are better and more important than their equivalents elsewhere.
Yes.
And I think that's a bad thing. And this movie is dripping with it.
Okay.
To
Well,
me, I don't care
how
about a
bad?
romance between somebody who they're playing up as this unrealistically virtuous and nice guy president. You don't get that far in politics by being that person.
But that's
like,
Aaron Sorkin's style, okay, and that's where I think you need to suspend disbelief.
No, the newsroom wasn't that like dripping with
Yeah,
it.
see,
It
that's
had
the
those
thing.
moments,
but The West Wing
certainly
was.
had those. Well, I didn't like The West Wing for very much the same reasons, and I don't think that's the West Wing that I did see. I don't think they had quite that idea.
West Wing is still Aaron Sorkin. He's going for this aspirational, like, what if the best good people? Hold on, like the best, like the best people who were actually noble. You're right. Like on a bunch of your points, that the United States has a very different reverence for their history, a glorification because it's born out of war. It's even their anthem is like, all about how they marched along and like and the bombs were
literally every country was born out of war.
Right, but what makes them different than Canada, the United Kingdom, is that the American president is also, even the president of France, who's also in this movie, the president of the United States,
president of France in this movie,
during the state dinner, in the state dinner.
Oh yeah,
right. And the president is the head of state and the head of government in the United States. So they and because their country comes from like the time of kings and whatever, like they very much do think of the president, or they especially used to, as like a king, and somebody who's above, somebody who's more noble and righteous and above, like a George Washington, or somebody like who's like they consider completely virtuous, even though obviously George Washington has his issues too, or an Abraham Lincoln, who we're going to be talking about, that these are people, they're not just ordinary people, but then there's also like
That's
this
gross to me. Is that gross to you?
A little bit,
like,
a little bit.
Let me ask you this, Dave. If this movie was made about any Canadian prime minister ever, would you like that movie, or would you find it gross?
I would still like it. I guess if this movie was about a fictional country that they just made up, I would still like this movie, but I can recognize I wouldn't call it, what did you call it? Propaganda. I wouldn't call it propaganda. It's a romanticized version, an aspirational version of what America could be, how America could be the most noble country that stands up for the right things, and they kind of are. America is a mixed bag.
I don't think it does do that, because it doesn't create the situations that make that so. It's just everybody. It's just like stupid things, like the president running into a flower shop and like the girl fainting. It's like, the president.
Yeah, well, that stuff I think is not my favorite part.
Like, to me, that's like one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in a movie.
Disgusting.
I found that, yes, disgusting. To think that someone should think that highly of any president, of any politician ever. To put that in a movie. You've put in your movie that someone should be so impressed by a politician that they faint at the sight.
It's not like they made it up out of thin air.
So brainwashed.
It's not like they pulled it out. It's not like they pulled it out of thin air. Like, yeah, if the president came up, or if you met Tom Cruise tomorrow, or somebody like famous.
I swear I would not faint if I met Tom Cruise.
Well,
I don't
think most people would faint per se, but like I think most people, if they encountered somebody famous, they would. They would have a reaction.
But even that is like not a thing to like promote and put in your movie. Like there was that scene had no purpose other than to like.
It's a weird thing to be hung up on. Like
glorify. But what is its purpose in the movie other than to glorify the office of a politician?
That the president's
and make
trying.
Him seem like this cool superhero.
They're trying to
like
portray
Superman.
this thing that the president, like the whole thing. Where are my credit cards? What if the president wanted to order flowers? They couldn't. Like they're kind of. Separate. The president is so isolated from the rest of society and the rest, because of the Secret Service and the White House and everything else. He's just like, hey, I just want to call a flower shop, and she's like, what do you mean? I will do that for you, sir. And so it's also the president trying to be. This president in this movie is trying to be less of the monster you want to make him to be, like this oligarch, but he's not. He's trying to be more down to earth, more relatable.
Demonizing as an oligarch with somebody that has more power than he actually has, or anything like that. It's just this glorification of celebrity.
But that's how the president was always looked at.
Gross,
But it's
man.
not,
But,
but it's realistic.
Why do I want to watch that in a movie if I think?
Well,
that's
I gotta
weird?
say,
Like,
let's
that would, if someone showed a movie where like Stephen Harper was walking down the street and somebody walked into a store and somebody fainted because it was Stephen Harper, like you would think that was so stupid. And you would probably find it a turnoff and like a bit.
But this is like
disgusting,
if
like just
he's supposed to be
why
like.
does that not apply?
Okay,
when it's an American movie. You know what I mean? Why does America get this pass on all this raging propaganda when it comes to like films?
They're good at
it.
it.
This very same reason.
They've been number one for years.
But it's not effective in things like this. Like this very same take on a movie ruined The Majestic for Murphy and I. We enjoyed the film aspects of that movie, but when they just like lathered the like how celebrity great America is, it derailed the entire film at the end. They just added this like 45
I guess it depends on how you view the United States coming into the movie too. Like your viewpoint politically.
I view them as a country like any other, and like any other country wouldn't weirdly make a movie like this. Like no one cares about who their political leaders are dating as far as making a movie of it in any other country.
What about this whole thing with like Harry and Meghan right now? We keep going on about that.
Yeah, he put you
thing. It's the same thing because the president of the United States is also the head of state, whereas in our country the prime minister is not. It's the governor general, and it's all this kind of in the royal family.
No, but it's
all this
not.
shit.
The governor general can't.
I know, but but we don't have that.
We don't have the same political.
Their country is different than ours.
But what's the significance of that?
What's the significance of what?
Okay, I'm gonna stop this right here. We're not gonna get into the significance of the politics of what presidency is what. No, what we're gonna ask is what scene from this. No, Davan. What we're gonna ask is what scene from this movie held up for you guys.
All right, to me, just when he says beat the shit out of them, everything else I could leave.
Him out back and beat the shit out of him. Good morning.
Oh, good. Okay, Murphy, what's yours?
For me, honestly, it's the Walk of Shame. That was the one scene that kind of stuck out and gave me a chuckle.
Okay, interesting.
What are you doing?
I wanted to leave the building before the press corps got here.
I have those same thoughts every day of my life.
Like, I like his charm when he says lines like that. You know, like Michael Douglas definitely cares.
He's very to me, he's very charismatic in this movie.
What?
Come on in, Louis. Good morning, Mr. President.
I just find him so phony because he sounds the same in everything, and it's never like this is.
That's like just your opinion, man.
Like, and this is what cop Michael Douglas sounds like, and this is what like lawyer is. That's like it's all the same guy.
Camped out at every exit.
So it's
you don't like Michael Douglas. I don't know what to tell you.
President. Well, I don't. Really. So
the press is camped out. See, okay, this is what I like about this scene is that like she's trying to be all sneaky and get out, and they already are like coming through the door and being like, "We caught you. We gotta heal this."
Yeah,
just one after another.
It's funny. There's a comedy to this, but this is not really a rom-com.
Martin Sheen. But here's the thing, though. If it's not the romance that's the point of this movie, then the point of this movie is all this just like
it's both. It's two. It's more than one thing.
No big issue.
Say what you want. It's always the guy in my job.
I don't think it knows what it is, what it wants to be.
I think
is it a romance or is it like an episode of The West Wing? Like what is it?
It's a little bit. It's more like a feature-length version of The West Wing.
With a romance plot.
Were there no romance plots in The West Wing?
That's what I say. It's just like the shitty romance episode of the show. It's like it's like a Deanna
It's so
Troi
dismissive.
Romance
Shitty romance.
No,
I don't like it. Blah blah blah.
Tell me,
talking about?
You know you don't.
He is a bit dismissive.
You don't like the Deanna Troi romance episodes of TNG any more than I do.
Oh, I love them.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
that's my point. Like romances are usually handled very clunkily in, like they're usually not interesting enough to carry a.
This movie's a fairy tale story
or a movie,
but you know,
like it is a fairy tale, but not one.
For me, the one last thing that I found kind of stood out in this film was what is arguably what I felt like was the most political scene, really, which is just the people gerrymandering.
Yeah.
I just liked how it was shot and put together.
That's what I wanted to hear.
You guys get
Oh, I like the
Michael-
fix-it guys in Lincoln. They're my guys.
Sydney, everybody
Those
cares about the
gerrymandered
environment
guys.
during a phone survey. On election day, nobody gives a damn. That's why you have a job.
Congressman Pennybaker, on election day, people give a damn about what I tell them to give a damn about. That's why I have a job.
Like, but why?
And nobody seems like, again, this is Aaron Sorkin, but nobody seems like a real person in this, except for Martin Sheen.
We're coming off Dr. Strangelove. I want to remember talk about people who don't seem like real people.
This is a serious movie, though. That's a crazy satire comedy.
20%. 3 more votes, the president sends it to the Hill.
3 more votes.
Katie,
Like
10
this,
years
and I
from
like
now, any car with
politics
an
and
internal combustion
political
engine's gonna be considered a
intrigue. But
collector's
This is
item.
government. This is like this is a realistic.
This is just nuts and bolts stuff, though. This is just like
This
watching.
is
episode
very
of Ad
cogwheel.
on CBC.
So?
Yeah, it's just. But like, why is that worthy of a movie? I guess is what we're getting at.
Because if you like politics, this is good. If you like
Like,
government,
you could just watch. You could just watch real politics. That's even more exciting than this because it's real. I know we're driving Dave
you
nuts
guys,
here.
you're driving me nuts.
What's your
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 critiques are
Hold
so petty
Listen.
and they're so like just
I
like
don't think
completely
this. I think
opinionated.
I was pretty deep with my critiques.
Like some of them, but like yes, I agree with you on the whole like reverence around the United States and everything. But to say these people don't seem like real people,
Don't you think this is
and-
dripping in that? Like, don't you think 90% of this movie is just that?
It's kind of like if you're
idealizing.
I'm viewing it
of
as a
the
Canadian. I'm not
political
American,
office.
so yes, I'm an outsider looking in, and I can see the masturbatory tendencies they have, the self-grandizing they have, and like everything else. Yes, of course, but it's also there's a charm to it. I see that the Americans in general, and what Rob Reiner's going for in this movie is like a real love of their country and of their history.
He's a believer.
He's a believer, you know, and I know that there's
But I
some.
find that blind faith in country very strange as well. Like,
Me
they're just-
too, but it's also endearing. And
So,
it's
like,
also,
again, so it's all these things that you agree with me. You find,
but I
find
don't know.
unappealing in a
I kind of
movie
agree.
that
I see
do.
your point, or I see the issues, but I don't have the same reaction as you. Yours is disgust, and mine is like,
is.
well, that's that's how they are.
Disgust when it's this dripping. Like a little bit of that in something is fine. Like a lot of American movies have.
See,
okay.
Okay. I gotta stop you here for a second, Davan. You're ragging on it heavy. You think it's a dripping political propaganda, self-suck Americana fest. You're not entirely wrong, but you're not entirely right either. It is those things, but it's not to the degree in which you're lambasting us right now.
It's not going to create a Blanca.
All this movie was. I agree.
That-
to me,
yeah,
that's all this movie was.
To you, yes, to
Most
you.
scenes are just
But
aggrandizing the office of the president.
Davan, to you, yes. But to Dave, who looks at this with nostalgia, he sees a lot more into it. For me, a person who's pretty much right down the middle, I could be as centrist as possible with this film. I looked at it from a technical standpoint. I looked at it from an entertaining standpoint. I looked at it from just the people delivering the lines. I love Aaron Sorkin's writing. He's written better films. Not a big fan of Rob Reiner's filmmaking in general. Therefore, it's already kind of like lacking in that aspect. It's very much feels like a TV show. There are things about this film that weren't appealing to me as watching it, and it felt a bit dry and boring. I honestly felt like I was going through a journey of a chalk mine and just watching these people like try and put emotion and weight to lines that it's subject matter that legitimately, like, yes, they on paper they should be important, but the way these folks delivered it did not feel important. And ultimately I felt ridiculed, or not ridiculed, but I just felt not entertained by it to a point where it's like I want to be enthralled. And I felt that with the later film Lincoln. But that being said, before we get to that, Dave, what were your scenes that you felt held up?
I have two. The first one is it's a scene between Michael J. Fox, and it's in the Oval Office, and Michael Douglas is Andrew Shepard, and it's about, he's like, they're going on about my life. This poll, the fact that his approval rating keeps dropping and dropping, and he's like, but I'm doing everything right. I'm solving these issues. I'm trying to do everything I campaigned on. And Michael J. Fox wakes him up. He's like, hey, you don't get to decide what the voters care about. Like, that's not that. It's they decide. That's how democracy is.
AJ, she is one vote away. It's important legislation that for the first time has a legitimate chance. She deserves every opportunity.
You meant hit, didn't you, sir? You meant the important legislation deserves every opportunity.
Louis, shut up. You have something to say to me, Louis?
Respectfully, sir, I think we should examine the new poll for something more than its value.
Examine
as a
what?
box
They don't like
score.
that I'm going out with Sydney.
It's not that simple. I think that this poll brings a murky problem into specific relief.
Whose problem we talking about, Louis? Yours? You worried about losing your job? Because this poll isn't talking about my presidency. This poll is talking about my life. 264 million people.
264 million people don't give a damn about your life. They give a damn about their own.
All right, that's enough.
Not wrong.
Mr. President, you raised a daughter almost entirely on your own. And she's terrific. So what does it say to you that in the past 7 weeks, 59%
This is
of this
coming off
country
pretty wooden.
has begun to question your family values?
The president
one is
doesn't
bad.
answer to you, Louis.
Oh, yes, he does, AJ. I'm a citizen. This is my president. And in this country, it is not only permissible to question our leaders, it's our responsibility. But you already know that, don't you, Mr. President? Because you have a deeper love of this country than any man I've ever known.
Oh my God.
And I want to know what it says to you that in the past 7 weeks, 59% of Americans have begun to question your patriotism.
Look, if people want to listen to
They
me,
don't
this is
have a
not-
choice. Bob Rumson is the only one doing the talking. People want leadership, Mr. President. In the absence of genuine leadership, they'll listen to anyone who steps up to the microphone. They want leadership. They're so thirsty for it, they'll crawl through the desert toward a mirage, and when they discover there's no water, they'll drink the sand.
Louis,
Music is also
we have had
god
presidents
Music's
who
amazing.
loved, who couldn't find
What?
a coherent sentence with 2
Yeah.
pens and a flashlight.
It's the most like recycled
People don't drink the
Rob
sand
Reiner
because they're
shit ever.
You're
thirsty.
so full of it. You're so full of
They
it.
drink the sand.
You
because
like
they
this
don't know the
music?
difference.
Yes.
They drink the sand because they don't know the difference. I'm with you, Dave. Like, it's a good line. Like, it's definitely like good dialogue there. It's just the delivery of
Davan,
it.
I don't know what to do with you, man. You don't like anything. You're just negative, negative,
I love
negative.
Dr.
I can't
Strangelove.
help you. Go to therapy. You gotta get through some issues here, bud.
I like Lincoln too.
You're like, I don't like this music. What do you mean? It's like an amazing score. I
It's
love
just
the music.
boring, but it's just typical. You know, it's very typical.
Like,
It's just like it's not interesting. Like a nice, like weird Danny Elfman score or something.
the
You
next
might
scene
need
I
a
would
good
like to
Danny Elfman.
point to is the amazing speech that he gives to the press corps later on, where he's lost Sydney at this point. Everything's fallen apart. And it's after that the conversation he had with Michael J. Fox about, like, you know, the people are going to drink the sand. And he's like, people don't know the difference. And yet basically Michael J. Fox inspires him to get up and actually like get into a character debate. And then he's like, and I'm going to change my whole thing. And this is really like the climax of the movie. I remember when Donald Trump was elected. This is a scene I went to, and I was like, you know what? Like, this is what a president should be, not this fuck. So that's here we go.
For the last couple of months, Senator Rumson has suggested that being president of this country was to a certain extent about character. And although I've not been willing to engage in his attacks on me, I've been here 3 years and 3 days. And I can tell you without hesitation, being president of this country is entirely about character. For the record, yes, I am a card-carrying member of the ACLU, but the more important question is, why aren't you, Bob?
What is the ACLU?
American
Whose
Civil
sole
Liberties Union.
purpose is to defend the Bill of Rights. So it naturally begs the
anti-government,
question,
sorta.
why would a senator, his party's most powerful spokesman and a candidate for president, choose to reject upholding the Constitution? Now, if you can answer that question, folks, then you're smarter than I am, because I didn't understand it until a few hours ago. America isn't easy.
You'll find this a very engaging
America.
speech.
I love
has
this speech.
advanced citizenship. You've got
You gotta want it bad.
because it's going to put up a fight. It's going to say, you want free speech?
There's just no
Let's see you
stakes in
acknowledge
this
a man
movie,
whose words
except
make
whether
your
he
blood
gets his
boil, who's
girlfriend or
standing
not.
center stage and advocating at the top of his lungs that which you would spend a lifetime opposing at the top of yours. You want to claim this land as a land of the
Land of
free?
the free.
Then the symbol of your country cannot just
Not
be
just
a flag.
flag.
The symbol also has to be one of its citizens exercising his right to burn that flag in protest. Now show me that. Defend that. Celebrate that in your classrooms. Then you can stand up and sing about the land of the free. I've known Bob Rumson for years, and I've been operating under the assumption that the reason Bob devotes so much time and energy to shouting at the rain was that he simply didn't get it. Well, I was wrong. Bob's problem isn't that he doesn't get it. Bob's problem is that he can't sell it. We have serious problems to solve, and we need serious
Stop
people
it,
to
Davan.
solve them. And whatever your particular problem is, I promise you, Bob Rumson is not the least bit interested in solving it. He is interested in two things, and two things only: making you afraid of it, and telling you who's
Same
to
thing
blame
as you,
for it. That,
getting
ladies and
elected.
gentlemen, is
Like,
how
don't
you
give
win
me this
elections.
shit.
You gather a group of middle-aged, middle-class, middle-income voters who remember with longing an easier time, and you talk to them about family,
Should have said this, but you'd be like, dude,
American
you clomp
values
his
and
ass.
character. And you wave an old photo of the president's girlfriend, and you scream about patriotism. You tell them she's to blame for their lot in life. And you go on television, and you call her a whore. Sidney Ellen Wade has done nothing to you, Bob. She has done nothing but put herself through school, represent the interest of public school teachers, and lobby for the safety of our natural resources. You want a character to
Ain't
debate,
someone with
Bob.
absolutely no
You
chemistry.
better stick with me, because Sidney Ellen Wade is way.
And keep doing your jabs. It's all right. You can't help yourself.
I can't help it.
You're so clever.
That's the point.
I've loved two women in my life. I lost one to cancer. And I lost the other because I was so busy keeping my job, I forgot to do my job. Well, that ends right now. Tomorrow morning, the White House is sending a bill to Congress for its consideration. It's White House Resolution 455, an energy bill requiring a 20% reduction of the emission of fossil fuels over the next 10 years. It is by far the most aggressive stride ever taken in the fight to reverse the effects of global warming. The other piece of legislation is the crime bill.
Oh my god, can we just
of
cut this
today,
off?
it no
It's
longer
going forever,
exists.
and it's like,
I'm throwing
All
it
right,
out.
fine.
God.
I'm throwing it out.
End
No,
it.
Is there a
we're
good
gonna
line at
watch.
the end
We're
or
gonna watch
something?
the whole.
Like,
There is.
You cannot address crime prevention without getting rid of assault weapons and handguns. I consider them a threat to national security, and I will go
This is
door
just
to door if
everyday
I have
Davin.
to.
What is wrong with you, David? Do you have no heart?
I do have heart, but this movie
We've
doesn't.
got serious problems, and we need serious people. And if you want to talk about character, Bob, you better come at me with more than a burning flag and a membership card.
It's just a
If you
politician
want to
talking
talk
about how great he
character
thinks he
and
is.
American values, fine. Just tell me where and when, and I'll show up. This is a time for serious people, Bob, and your 15 minutes are up.
Yeah, I'll vote for you,
My
bud.
name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
My name's William Shatner, and I am Canadian. Anyway.
That's one of my favorite
Hey,
speeches
Murphy.
in any movie ever.
Why? Why?
Because it's inspirational.
What's inspirational about that? That like
The whole
he thinks
thing.
he's a better political candidate than his rival.
That it's about character. It's about standing up for what's right. It's about.
Is that not what literally every politician says every election? Is this not just
David,
the most
I don't know how to
basic,
cure your
mundane-
cynicism and your like
But
mistrust.
is it not? Is that very speech not something you've basically heard from every politician in every election ever?
No.
I think it is.
Well, then we don't see the world the same way. Don't know what to tell you, bud. I'm almost. Can we move on? I'm so sick of it.
David riled up.
I think it's time.
Whose performance would you hold up?
For me, it's Michael Douglas.
For me, yeah, I guess
Give it to
Michael
Ron
Douglas.
Canada.
Ron Canada.
Got like 3 lines.
Yeah, I'm giving it to Ron Canada. That was the most interested I got during the movie.
Yeah, I guess Michael Douglas is probably the best performance. So hold up for me myself. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that brings us to morsels. Hey, did you run the numbers, Murphy? Do you have the amount of American flags soiled by a jacklet during the making of this movie? That's the morsel I was waiting for, and you're usually on top of that stuff, so I'll be disappointed if you don't have the numbers there.
All right, so the American President in 1995 with these movie morsels. I'm not gonna lie, the movie morsels were pretty fucking boring, and I had some trouble finding ones that seemed decent. But here's the ones that I pulled out. Before the movie started shooting, Michael J. Fox was still keeping his Parkinson's disease a secret. He felt he would lose the role if Rob Reiner found out. During a basic and routine fitness screening, Fox was terrified that clinicians would detect the periodic shaking in his left hand and eventually connect it to Parkinson's. Fortunately for Fox, he took his medication in time to quell the shaking, and the test amounted to nothing more than checking heart rate and blood pressure.
I don't know. I thought I noticed it in a scene, and that's why
There was a couple scenes where you could tell he was definitely trying to keep it under wraps. Yeah. Robert Redford, whose Wildwood Productions co-produced the film, was originally cast in the lead role. He was replaced with Michael Douglas after falling out with Rob Reiner. Redford, however, remained on board as a producer.
I think I
would have been better with Redford.
No, it wouldn't.
100%.
I like Michael, but you don't like Michael Douglas, so I don't know what to tell you.
No.
You're a Michael Douglas hater.
The telephone number President Shepard gives Sidney to call him back, 456-1414, is in fact the number to the White House, area code 202. Tell them we said hey. Camp David is strictly off limits to the public, and media production designer Lily Kilbert used someone's personal snapshots from the Richard Nixon era and a lot of imagination when designing the set.
Yeah, and I think you're probably gonna hit on this next, but isn't the Oval Office set like been used in a bunch of movies that they built for this movie?
So the Oval Office set was originally constructed for Dave in 1993, and
it's from Dave.
And used for The West Wing in 1999, and this movie, and Devery Smith has appeared in all three productions.
I think it's in Independence Day. I think it's the same white Oval Office set.
I was wondering about that. It looks like Independence Day. I think it is.
Yeah.
It's one of the few rare PG-13 movies allowed to keep its PG-13 rating, despite the use of the word "fuck" 3 times, all within 15 minutes of each other, but none used in sexual context.
Oh, well, that's all that matters. Don't get
The beer I'm drinking is called Hazy Dave's.
Hazy Dave's. That's it.
Prior to Aaron Sorkin joining the project, early versions of the script depicted President Andrew Shepard as a military veteran and former special ops agent. Rob Reiner discussed the lead role with Bruce Willis and Steven Seagal before Sorkin rewrites transition Shepard to more academic character.
Hold on, guys.
I can't believe that. Seagal?
Yeah. Bruce Willis or Steven Seagal would have been the president of this movie at one point in the writing of this script.
Not Seagal. Like, he can't act. I could see Bruce Willis at least maybe playing the president in a movie.
Maybe, but Steven Seagal, it was 95, you know, it was the height of Steven Seagal.
That proves all your theories about Rob Reiner. If he was willing to cast Steven Seagal as the lead in anything.
He was going to put Steve. Wait, I missed that. Steven.
He was going to cast Steven Seagal as the lead in this movie.
What?
Prior to Aaron Sorkin joining the project, early versions of the script depicted President Andrew Shepard as a military veteran and former special ops agent. Rob Reiner discussed the lead role with Bruce Willis and Steven Seagal before Sorkin's rewrites transitioned Shepard to a more academic character.
That's who you put your faith in, Dave. That man.
Well, Bruce Willis, I think, would have been fine, but Steven Seagal would be awful. That's the worst idea I've ever heard.
President Shepard says to his chief of staff, AJ McInerney, Martin Sheen, someday someone is going to have to explain to me the virtue of a proportional response.
A proportional response, yeah.
In The West Wing 1999, President Martin Sheen asks his chief of staff, what is the virtue of a proportional response? Both were written by Aaron Australian Labor.
That was the one line that stood out to me in this movie. Actually, what is the version?
This is the least presidential thing I do.
Australian Labor Party MP Anthony Albanese plagiarized parts of the President Andrew Shepard's speech for his 2012 Natural Press Club address.
It's a good speech.
No, this is just like every speech given by every politician during every election ever.
Jessica Lange, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Susan Sarandon were all considered for the role of Sydney.
Oh my God, Susan Sarandon would have been so much better in this.
She would have been.
They really squandered the casting in this, in my opinion. They had, I mean, not the Seagal thing, changing their mind there.
Let's move on to the next fact, so Davan can
Well,
add it would have been better or worse or something like that.
Well, that's actually my last movie morsel because I was sort of crunched on time for getting them, and these are the ones that kind of stood out. So, cinematography is by John Seal, edited by Robert Layton. Release date of November 17th, 1995, the running time of 113 agonizing minutes. Budget $62 million. Box office $107.9 million.
Do you guys got to be such dicks? I don't get it. Just say 113 minutes. You don't have to put agonizing minutes. Not necessary. So
no, look, I gave it to Murphy just as bad for Southland Tales and I Heart Huckabees.
This is not Southland Tales. This is not Southland Tales.
But I would say it's still in the same Harpies Huckabees.
I don't know if it's worse than Southland Tales. I don't know. Like, they're both as meaningless, but whatever.
I am done talking about this movie with you two.
All right, let's move on. Rewatchability.
Absolutely, no. I watch it every year.
Every year? Yeah. Why? When? Like on Thanksgiving or something? Or President's Day? Or like the 4th of July? Like, what are you doing?
I love it.
How many... Anyway, moving on. Does it hold up?
Are you guys going to watch this again?
No.
I imagine not.
Does it hold
15
up?
minutes in, I was already mad about how boring it was. But anyway, does it hold up? Not for me. It's just propaganda.
It holds up, absolutely.
It just doesn't hold up for me because I just found it like the chalk line. Boring, base, and white.
It's fine. I'll be the dissenter. 2 wolves and a sheep voting on what to have for dinner. That's what this whole segment was about.
You've saved it and knocked it into the B section. You saved it from a C, Dave.
All right. Well, it's time to get into an actual political film, a real gem, if you will. We're stepping into Theater 3, and we're going to be checking out the Steven Spielberg classic.